Hi, Filter here. I hope you guys are enjoying your Halloween. It is about 2 p.m. and move this pillow down. It's about 2 p.m. and the kids haven't started knocking on the doors looking for free candy because they're socialists. All right. Let's put it. Let me put it to you this way. I've been looking at all this information pertaining to um, M- Mark Waid and diversity in comics, and the fact that Richard Meyers, diversity in comics, is going to push for an actual trial. I mean, he's going for the freaking gold, and I'll give him something. I'll give him that. He's going for the gold. I have a fear though, and my fear is simple because we have seen in recent day years, months, that even though somebody is dead to rights, they still seem to get off. Case in point, I keep going back to two incidences which are just mind blowing, and I don't understand how this went the way it did. One is dealing with Allenton Tiemann from the Honey Badgers, um, losing a court case for being unjustifiably thrown out of the Calgary Expo. Doesn't make any sense, but it happened. It happened. They lost this case. She answered a question that on a panel, and somehow or another she gets the platform thrown out of the place unjustifiably, takes it to court, and loses. And now she has to pay. And the other case that comes into mind is what happened with the professor with the bike lock. Again, everybody sees what this guy does, and he does not face anything. And I'm like, oh my goodness, how's this work in your universe? But I'm not privy to all the stuff at the court, but I don't know. That's just a weird fear that I have pertaining to Richard Myers and Mark Waid. Now, I will not discuss anything with the lawyer, Mark Zaid. I, because everything that I've heard about him, he's been trying to goad people into a sort of hate-filled rant or something. They want to goad them into it, goad people into it, and that way they're going to, um, I guess, where they could say, "Oh well, look, see how hateful these people are." That's the entire tactic. This leads me back to something I've said years ago, which is SJWs, NPCs, and people on the left think everybody's stupid. They think that you could be easily led into something, which is furthest from the truth. But I mean, that's the way I see it. He's trying to goad people into saying something hateful and spiteful, and I think he's having a hard time um, getting people to, I guess, follow his lead or whatever. People just ain't going for it. They're just not going for it. They're saying, screw this. We're not going to attack this guy, and they're just going to move on. Now, as this thing goes to court, I could see right now this will be a PR nightmare for Marvel Entertainment slash Disney. This will be a PR nightmare because everything will be brought to bear if it's in a trial. Now, Mark Waid wants probably to settle. keep it quiet, non-disclosure agreement. No, 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 no. Richard Meyers is going for the gold, and he's going to bring this to trial, which is why you have Mark Waid raising money because he doesn't want to spend his money. That's another thing about SJWs/NPCs. They don't like spending. Hold on, let me just grab this. They don't like spending their own money. They like spending your money. It's a common thing. It's common practice. Everybody knows. And what's going to happen is Mark Waid. I don't think he's ever been to a trial, and if things go accordingly, he's going to discover that he's going to discover something that NPCs have not discovered in their life, and that is their actions have consequences. It's always interesting how they always keep saying that everybody else is violent and all this, but yet they're the ones doing it. Great case of projection. That's just basically it. It's projection. But with that being said, let's review a few other things. Comicsgate and Gamergate, and how most people have pointed out that there are similarities. The only difference is that Gamergate imploded on itself. Mainly, the personalities got involved, and they stopped focusing on the real problem. But then again, it didn't take much for the people in Gamergate, the principal players, to fall apart and the SJWs to succeed. After all, the SJWs did have media on its side. They had media on its side, and there was very little you could do except complain. Most of the people were not in computer programming, and they weren't working with the big studios, so that pretty much, and most of the people that run those studios have almost close thoughts or ideological traits with your Anita Sarkeesians. Anita Sarkeesian, as everybody can point out, is an opportunist. Zoe Quinn is an opportunist that basically made her money by, well, let's be honest, she, I guess, slept her way to the top. I mean, that is the rumor. I'm going to call it a rumor. I'm not going to say it's fact. I'm going to call it a rumor. But that has been the thing. She got her way to the top through the 5 guys who wrote glowing articles about her and friends and stuff like that. And instead of those people calling her out, they basically circled the wagons. That's all that happened. That's all she wrote. The only difference with comics is that with comics is that we have a lot of creative people, and they could simply bypass the big companies. They could just simply bypass the big companies, go to a small convention, and sell ashcan versions of their comic. That's it. People who love comics will love to say, "Hey, this is pretty good. I like this story," and they'll continue, and they'll read it. Now, Comicsgate and Gamergate, like I said, Gamergate imploded because there were a lot of, from what I understand, there was a lot of egos involved. There were a lot of people vying for some type of voice, not necessarily being a leader, but applying for the voice of Gamergate to point out the corruption. Originally, most of this was compiled and put together by internet aristocrat Jim or Mr. Matoker. He put this stuff together, and we were given full scope of what the hell was going on. While most of us were shocked, horrified, taken aback, he just put it out there for us. And many people wanted Jim to be the leader of Gamergate, the voice, the spearhead. No, he was just pointing out there is a problem. Much in the same way as Richard Meyers. He's just pointing out this comic sucks. Look at this. This story sucks. Look how badly written. Look how badly edited. This story makes no sense. The characters make no sense. That's all he was doing. That's all he was doing. He would joke around about who was the writer, and that was it. Nothing hateful. That's it. He was just pointing it out. These people took it personally. Now, if you want to blame anybody, at the end of the day, we should all blame the journalists out there. CBR, the Mary Sue, and all these other places, Bleeding Cool. These are outlets, comic outlets, that are either one of two things: lazy or flat out ideologues. Because if they weren't ideologues, they would literally sit down and say, no, the people complaining about your book are not Nazis, white supremacists, misogynists, homophobes, transphobes, isphobes, or whatever else you want to put out there. But unfortunately, the comics journals are lazy or ideologues. The only difference between comicsgate and Gamergate is that there is authentic pushback. We do not have to buy the comics that are out there. Or we could buy them and still point out how silly they are. Which brings me back to what some of these people said. If you don't like it, don't buy it. In some cases, if you don't like it, do your own. Well, Richard Meyers did his own, and Mark Waid got in the way of him doing his own stuff. And like I said, I really honestly hope, like a lot of people, that this goes to trial. Because when people realize, I know what the end result will be, but this will teach individuals such as him that some people are going to be more emboldened. You see, if Richard Meyers takes this to trial, this will send a message to all those other people that write disparaging comments. Okay, not so much as disparaging comments, but basically try the Mark Waid approach to keeping somebody from doing their own thing. And when that takes place, again, that's when you'll see a sort of, I guess, a die down or a slowdown of the attacks. Of course, if Mark Waid loses, there'll be a few articles about how this is unfair and unjust and unjust and unfair, and then other people are going to look at it and say, no, this is completely fair. I guarantee you, they'll say somebody is going to write how unfair it is, and in the comments section of Bleeding Cool, or one of these other things, they'll say, no, it's completely fair. You shouldn't have gotten in the way of him making his own book. Plain and simple. Again, the only difference between us, the people who want quality books, and them, the NPCs who want ideology thrown every time you turn around, because for some weird reason they cannot separate themselves from their ideology. I don't know. Enough has been said about this. I really don't have to go into any detail. But I just thought I'd put that out there. what else? Yes, it's going to be a somewhat long video. In my last video pertaining to Doctor Who, I really honestly think that, again, they think we're stupid and they think they need to teach us something. And quite frankly, it's getting on a lot of people's nerves. I mean, how would you feel if every time you walked into the door and let me put it this way. How many times how would you feel if every time you walked into work and somebody's talking down to you constantly because they don't think that you're smart enough to understand anything? How would you feel about that? You'd feel annoyed. That's the way I feel every time I look at certain TV shows now. I'm willing to give and I'm willing to give Doctor Who a chance. Maybe I'm going to hold out for the season. Maybe they'll give us a good story that doesn't give us some allegory about how evil Donald Trump is, how evil conservatives is, how wonderful socialism is, and some shit like that. I'm just hoping. I'm just really honestly hoping. But, you know, I'm not holding my breath on that one. But, and what really kills me about this is that for all of us longtime fans, suddenly we're not real fans because we complain about the overt political messaging. That's the part that really gets on my nerves. You're not real fans. You're not real comic fans. You're not real this fans. You're not. Dude, I've been reading comics since I was 5. What the hell? What are you getting at? What do you mean I'm not a real fan? You mean I'm not a fan of your version of superheroics? Yeah. Okay, now I'm beginning to ramble, and this rum and Pepsi is really beginning to hit me right now. All right, rate this video if you like it. Hit the notification bell. Until then, I'm Filter. Later.